He buried her on a Tuesday. The rain came down so hard you couldn't tell where the sky ended and the earth began. He knelt at the grave, his hands trembling, his voice breaking as he whispered her name one last time. Everyone thought she was gone. The police closed the case. Her family mourned. The town moved on. But 3 weeks later, she walked through his front door wearing the wedding dress she was supposed to die in, and when he saw her standing there, alive, breathing, smiling, he didn't feel relief. He felt terror, because she had been watching him the entire time, and what she discovered while the world thought she was dead would destroy everything he'd built, everyone he'd lied to, and the perfect life he thought he could steal from her grave. This is the story of a woman who faked her own death to expose the man she almost married, a bride who staged a car crash, attended her own funeral in disguise, and watched as the person she loved most in the world revealed who he really was when he thought no one was looking. It sounds like fiction. It sounds impossible. But every word of what you're about to hear actually happened. And by the end of this story, you're going to ask yourself a question that might keep you up tonight. If the person you trusted most betrayed you in the worst way possible, how far would you go to prove it? Would you disappear? Would you let them think you were gone forever just to see if they'd tell the truth when they thought you couldn't hear them anymore? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Emma. His name was Ryan. And their love story started the way all great love stories do, with hope, with laughter, with a belief that they'd found the one person in this world who would never hurt them. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Something quiet. Something small. The kind of lie that doesn't announce itself. The kind of betrayal that hides behind a smile. And by the time Emma realized what was happening, it was too late to confront him. So she did something no one expected. She made him think she was dead. Emma Clark was 28 years old when she met Ryan Foster. She was an event planner in a small city just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, the kind of woman who could walk into a chaotic wedding venue and turn it into something magical within hours. People loved her. She had this energy, this warmth that made you feel like you mattered. Her clients said she didn't just plan weddings, she made people believe in love again. Ryan was 32, a real estate developer who'd grown up in the same town and had that southern charm that made everyone trust him instantly. He was the guy who remembered your name, who asked about your kids, who showed up to community events and stayed late to help clean up. When they started dating, it felt inevitable. People would see them together at the farmer's market or grabbing coffee on Sunday mornings and think, of course they're together. They just fit. They got engaged after a year and a half. Ryan proposed at the botanical gardens where they'd had their first date, and Emma said yes before he even finished asking. The ring was perfect. The moment was perfect. Their families cried. Their friends posted about it online. Everyone said they were the kind of couple that restored your faith in relationships, but if you looked closely, if you really paid attention, there were moments when Emma's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Moments when Ryan's phone would buzz during dinner and he'd glance at it just a little too quickly before putting it face down on the table. Moments when Emma would ask him where he'd been, and he'd answer just a little too smoothly, like he'd rehearsed it. Her best friend, a woman named Claire who'd known Emma since college, said she noticed it about 2 months before the wedding. Emma had started asking questions. Little ones at first. Why are you always working late on Thursdays? Who keeps calling you from that blocked number? Why did you tell me you were at a work site when I drove past and your truck wasn't there? Ryan always had an answer. He was patient, even a little amused, like Emma was being paranoid and he loved her too much to be offended by it. But Claire said something changed in Emma after those conversations. She became quieter, more distant. One night, about 3 weeks before the wedding, Emma called Claire at 2 a.m. She was crying. She said, "I think he's lying to me. I think he's been lying to me for months. And if I'm right, I don't know how I'll ever trust anyone again." Claire asked her what she was going to do. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that didn't make sense at the time. She said, "If he's lying, I need to know how far he'll go. I need to see who he really is when he thinks I'm not watching." Claire thought she meant she was going to hire a private investigator or check his phone. But Emma had something else in mind, something no one could have predicted. The day before the wedding, Emma called her mother. It was early in the morning, the kind of hour when the world is still quiet and nothing feels real yet. Her mother said Emma sounded strange, calm, but too calm, like she was reading from a script. She said, "Mom, I love you. I need you to know that. No matter what happens, I love you, and everything I've done has been for a reason." Her mother asked what she meant, but Emma just said she had errands to run and she'd see her soon. That was the last time anyone in her family heard her voice. That afternoon, Emma's car was found at the edge of the Catawba River, about 15 miles outside of town. The front end was smashed against a tree. The driver's side door was open. Her purse was on the passenger seat, her phone still inside, cracked but functional. The last message on her screen was to Ryan. It said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." The police arrived within an hour. They searched the riverbank. They brought in divers. They found nothing. No body. No sign of where she'd gone. The working theory was that she'd crashed the car, stumbled out in shock, and either fallen into the river or wandered into the woods. The current was strong that day. The water was cold. If she'd gone in, they said, it was unlikely they'd find her. Ryan was at the venue when he got the call. Witnesses said he collapsed. He couldn't breathe. He kept saying her name over and over, like if he said it enough times she'd walk through the door and tell him it was all a mistake. The wedding was canceled. The guests were notified. Emma's family held a small memorial service 5 days later. There was no body to bury, but they needed something, some way to say goodbye. Ryan gave a eulogy. He stood at the front of the room in a black suit that looked too big on him now, his face hollow, his voice breaking every few words. He said, "She was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know how to live in a world where she doesn't exist." People cried. Her mother held his hand. Everyone thought he was devastated. But here's what no one knew. 2 days after the memorial, a woman checked into a motel 30 miles away under a fake name. She paid in cash. She wore a baseball cap and sunglasses even though it was overcast. The clerk at the front desk didn't think much of it until later, when the police released Emma's photo and she realized the woman in the hat looked exactly like the bride everyone was mourning. And there was something else, something the clerk remembered that made her skin crawl. The woman had been carrying a wedding dress, not in a bag, not folded. She had it draped over her arm like she was on her way to the altar. When the clerk asked if she was okay, the woman smiled and said, "I'm exactly where I need to be." The case became national news within a week. Missing bride, crashed car, no body. It had everything the media loved. The local police were overwhelmed. They set up a tip line. They interviewed everyone who knew Emma. Her family begged for information. Her father went on television and said, "If anyone knows anything, please. We just want to bring our daughter home." Ryan did interviews too. He sat across from reporters and talked about how much he missed her, how he'd give anything to have her back, how he couldn't understand why this had happened. He looked like a man who'd lost everything. But while Ryan was crying on camera, something strange was happening. Credit card activity. Small charges under a name that wasn't Emma's but used the same card number linked to an account she'd opened months earlier. A gas station 50 miles north. A grocery store in a town no one had ever heard of. A storage unit rented 2 weeks before the crash. The police couldn't explain it. If Emma was dead, who was using her card? Then came the email. It arrived at the local news station on a Thursday morning, sent from an anonymous account. The subject line said, "The bride is alive." The message was short. It said, "She didn't die. She left. And if you want to know why, ask Ryan Foster what he was doing every Thursday night for the past 6 months." The news station forwarded it to the police. Detectives brought Ryan in for questioning. He denied everything. He said he didn't know what the email was talking about. He said he'd been working late, meeting with clients, doing everything he could to build a life for him and Emma. But when they pulled his phone records, his story started to fall apart. There were hundreds of texts to a number he'd never mentioned, late-night calls that lasted hours, photos sent back and forth, some of them innocent, some of them not. And when they traced the number, they found out who it belonged to. It was Emma's maid of honor, a woman named Jessica who'd been Emma's best friend since high school, the same woman who'd stood beside her at the engagement party and promised to be there for her no matter what. The police confronted Jessica. At first she denied it, then she broke down. She admitted they'd been seeing each other for months. She said it started as nothing, just late-night conversations after Emma went to bed, just someone to talk to when Ryan felt stressed about the wedding, but it became more. She said she didn't mean for it to happen. She said she felt terrible. But when detectives asked her if Ryan had seemed upset about Emma's disappearance, she hesitated. She said, "He was sad at first. But after a few days, he started talking about the future. He started talking about us. And then, about 2 weeks after the memorial, Jessica said Ryan asked her to move in with him. He said Emma would have wanted him to be happy. He said they deserved a chance. Jessica said yes. That's when the anonymous emails started coming faster. More details, more evidence. Someone was feeding the media information that only Emma could have known. Text messages between Ryan and Jessica that had never been made public. Photos of them together taken from angles that suggested someone had been following them. And then, 3 weeks after Emma's disappearance, a package arrived at the police station. Inside was a USB drive. No note, no return address. When detectives opened it, they found a video. The timestamp showed it had been recorded the day before Emma's car was found at the river. In the video, Emma was sitting in a chair in what looked like a storage unit. She was calm. Her voice was steady. She said, "My name is Emma Clark. If you're watching this, it means I'm either dead or I've decided it's time for the truth to come out. I didn't die in that crash. I staged it, and I know how that sounds. I know what people are going to think. But I need you to understand why." She explained everything. She said she'd suspected Ryan was cheating for months, but couldn't prove it. Every time she asked, he made her feel like she was imagining things, like she was the problem. So she hired a private investigator, and what she found broke her. Ryan and Jessica had been together since before the engagement. They'd been planning to wait until after the wedding to tell her, to let her go through with it so Ryan wouldn't look like the bad guy. Emma said, "I realized that if I confronted him, he'd lie. He'd twist it. He'd make me look like I was overreacting. So I decided to disappear. I wanted to see what he'd do if he thought I was gone. I wanted to see if he'd confess, if he'd tell the truth, if he'd mourn me or move on. And the answer was worse than I ever imagined." In the video, Emma's voice cracked for the first time. She said, "He didn't even wait a week." The video ended with Emma saying she didn't know when she'd come back, but when she did, she wanted everyone to know exactly who Ryan Foster really was. The police released the video to the public. The reaction was immediate. Social media exploded. People were furious, heartbroken, confused. Some said Emma was a hero. Others said she'd gone too far, that faking your death was unforgivable no matter what someone did to you. Ryan went silent. He stopped doing interviews. He stopped posting online. Jessica released a statement saying she was sorry and didn't know Emma was still alive, but the damage was done. Ryan's business collapsed. His reputation was destroyed. People he'd known his entire life stopped speaking to him, and through it all, Emma was still gone. No one knew where she was. No one knew if she was ever coming back. 1 month after the video was released, there was a charity gala in Emma's honor. Her family had organized it to raise money for a women's shelter, something Emma had always cared about. It was held at the same venue where the wedding was supposed to happen. Hundreds of people showed up. Emma's mother gave a speech. She talked about her daughter's kindness, her strength, her belief that people deserved second chances, even when they didn't deserve forgiveness. And then, just as the event was winding down, the lights dimmed. The projector screen at the front of the room flickered on. People thought it was part of the program. But then a face appeared. Emma's face. She was smiling. She looked healthy. She looked free. And she was live. People gasped. Someone screamed. Emma's mother collapsed into her chair, and in the back of the room, Ryan stood frozen, his face drained of color. Jessica was next to him. She grabbed his arm like she was afraid he'd run. Emma spoke directly to the camera. She said, "I know you all thought I was gone. I let you think that because I needed to see the truth. I needed to know who would stand by me and who would use my death as an opportunity." She looked directly at Ryan. She said, "You didn't mourn me. You celebrated. You moved on before my body was even cold, before anyone stopped looking for me. You took my best friend into our home. You sold my things. You acted like I never existed. And now everyone knows exactly who you are." The room was silent. Ryan tried to leave, but people blocked the exits. They wanted answers. They wanted him to explain. But he couldn't. He just stood there, shaking, while Emma's face stayed on the screen. She said, "I didn't do this for revenge. I did this because I needed to know if love was real or if I'd been living a lie. And now I have my answer." The screen went dark. Emma didn't say where she was. She didn't say if she was coming back. She just ended the feed. And for weeks afterward, no one knew where she'd gone. Eventually, the police found her. She was staying with a cousin in another state, living quietly, working at a bookstore under a different name. They asked if she wanted to press charges against Ryan for fraud or emotional distress. She said no. She said she'd gotten what she needed. The truth. Ryan's life never recovered. He moved away. People say he works construction now, far from anyone who knew him before. Jessica tried to apologize publicly, but Emma never responded. The last anyone heard, Emma had started a nonprofit helping women leave toxic relationships. She gives talks sometimes, never using her real name, always wearing a ring on her finger even though she never got married. People ask her if she regrets what she did. She always says the same thing. "I don't regret learning the truth. I only regret how long it took me to see it." So here's the question nobody wants to answer, but everyone's thinking. Was Emma justified? Did she have the right to fake her death? To put her family through that kind of pain? To manipulate an entire town just to expose one man's betrayal? Or did she go too far? Some people say she's a hero. They say she did what most people are too afraid to do. She demanded the truth, and she didn't stop until she got it. They say Ryan deserved everything that happened to him and worse. But others say she crossed a line. They say grief is real, that her family's pain was real, that you don't get to play with people's emotions just because someone hurt you. They say there were other ways, legal ways, honest ways, and maybe they're right. But here's what I keep coming back to. Emma didn't just want proof. She wanted to see who Ryan was when he thought no one was watching. She wanted to know if he'd confess, if he'd break down, if he'd tell the truth when it didn't benefit him anymore. And he didn't. He moved on. He lied. He built a new life on top of her grave. So maybe the real question isn't whether Emma was justified. Maybe the question is, how well do you really know the person you love? How do you know they'd choose you if you weren't there to see it? How do you know the version of them you see is the version that exists when you're not in the room? Emma found out the hard way, and it destroyed her life. But it also set her free. Think about that. Think about the people in your life who you trust completely. The ones you'd never question, the ones you'd defend without hesitation. Now ask yourself, if they thought you were gone, if they thought no one was watching, would they still be the person you believe they are? It's an uncomfortable question, but it's the question Emma couldn't stop asking. And eventually, it's the question that saved her from marrying someone who never really loved her at all. If this story shook you, if it made you question something you thought you knew, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Emma did the right thing? Would you have done the same? Or do you think she went too far? And if you were Ryan, if you were caught like that, exposed in front of everyone, Would you have confessed or would you have kept lying? Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if this story hit close to home. And if you stuck with me all the way to the end, thank you. It means you're the kind of person who doesn't look away when the truth gets uncomfortable. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories that make you think. Stories that remind you that real life is stranger and more heartbreaking than anything we could make up. Because the truth is, love doesn't always look like we want it to. And sometimes, the only way to see it clearly is to disappear and watch what happens when people think you're never coming back.